Hey there everyone, I'm Darieth Chisholm. Welcome to Hustle and Heart TV, and you're probably in the throes of hustling for the holidays. Hope you're enjoying it. Happy holidays everyone, and thank you so much for watching the shows. It means a lot that you've been watching them, and I hope that you're certainly enjoying them. All right, so we might all agree that when we think about big hospital chains, we probably think about specialists and doctors and nurses receiving the kind of care that saves lives and gets us up and moving when we really need it. And it might be safe to say that we rarely think about how the employees there interact or the business of managing those relationships. But creating cultural competency is my next guest's mission. Her name is Candy Castleberry Singleton, and she has created an incredible program at UPMC. She works with other business owners and coaches others in this idea of dignity and respect. So I got the chance to sit down and have tea with her in her apartment in Pittsburgh, and we learned all about ways that you can build dignity and respect in your workplace and in your business environment. All of that and more with Candy Castleberry Singleton on Hustle and Heart TV. You're watching Hustle and Heart TV, a video podcast show that spotlights expert advice from top money earners, successful entrepreneurs, superstar network marketers, and leading authorities in business and marketing. I'm Darieth Chisholm. I'm inviting you into my home, and I'm bridging my own personal success as an entrepreneur, MLMer, news anchor, and now video podcast show host to help you leverage more tools and resources, make more money, and generate more ways to take action, become a rock star, and love your journey. Candy, thank you so much for being a part of Hustle and Heart TV. I just enjoy being in your home, having tea with you. It's quite comfortable. I think we might stay the evening here.
Well, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you. Well, it's really my pleasure to have this afternoon with you and spend some time talking to you. I love what you're doing in Pittsburgh in the community. You've really, defined what it means to be involved from a grassroots effort, but with a major, medical name like UPMC. How do you do all of this with the inclusion program, the dignity and respect, and everything else that you have to do?
I don't know. I probably just think of it as taking one day at a time. I mean, if I try to think of everything that I have to do in sort of one big picture, it will feel overwhelming. And there are some days that I just think if I could just get to Friday, I'll be okay. But there's not very many things on my calendar that I would say, I don't want to do this. Obviously, my day job at UPMC has expanded from just being, I think when people think of diversity and inclusion, they think of how many people did you hire, how many people did you fire, and I would say our work has as much to do with the number of patients that are different than we serve. So when you think about people who speak different languages, people who have different faiths and backgrounds, people who have abilities and disabilities, things that we cannot see. So when you think about a patient coming into a hospital, we have to ensure that they have a culturally appropriate experience. And simply because we may not, as the caregiver, fully understand what their requirements might be, it doesn't give us any less accountability for trying to provide that care. And so when you think about what I have to do every day, I mean, my intention is to ensure that we become an organization that is known for delivering culturally competent care, as much as, obviously, the traditional kinds of work of ensuring that we have a diverse workforce. And when you think about faith and the LGBT community, oftentimes it is faith that dictates, in many cases, what we do with sickness, dying, and death in our traditions. And our newest challenge, I would say, is this whole conversation around ensuring that people in the LGBT community can be their fully disclose who they are, so that we can provide a full spectrum of care. Because if you can't tell me everything, then I can't provide the care in some cases or recommendations for care that you need. So when I think about my day job, it's full with learning new things. And I don't know everything that I always need to know, but that's where community partnerships come in. And so I think my days are filled with learning. Sometimes they're filled with disappointment and sadness and thinking that in some cases people still might have a narrow perspective of others, and in some cases allow that to come out in the delivery of care, or even in sometimes interactions with employees. But for the most part, we have as many stories of how we got it right and how a patient who perhaps, one example, we have a patient who was deaf and she wanted to hear her baby cry. And so we found through a partnership this baby cry alert where you know, how normally you'd put in a room, you'd put the baby cry alert and you put one in your room and one in the other room. In this case, instead of hearing it, it vibrates when the baby is making a noise. So when you think about the discoveries and the partnerships that we build, then that's the reason why you keep doing it every day. And then sometimes, you know, it's the patient who comes in who is of a different faith. Of a faith, for example, a Muslim patient who doesn't want his face shaved, and it's a part of his treatment would normally be to shave his face. But working with his family, we're able to just cut around the scar and treat it with a topical treatment that allowed us to allow him to maintain his dignity and stay steadfast to his faith and allowed us to provide care. So when I think of my day job being full with these kinds of activities, I mean, you can't help but get up and say somebody has to do it. And someone has to tell the story when we get it right, and someone has to be there to help us when we get it wrong.
So to understand just the history around diversity and inclusion as it relates to UPMC, were those components in place prior to you coming, or did you bring that and since have been evolving that?
Right.
So much to the point that as you narrowed right into two specific stories of just how that program affects the patients.
Right. Well, so UPMC's journey started in 1998, and for those people who might know Esther Bush, she's the president of the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh. She was very instrumental in ensuring that UPMC stayed focused and began, in some cases, a focus on diversity and inclusion. And for the most part, from 1998 until 2008, it was primarily focused on workforce and the diversity of our workforce, from physicians to clinicians, nurses, entry-level positions. One of the things that I would say, having worked in Motorola and thinking about the world of diversity and cultures around the world and the kinds of engagement that you have to have if you're on a team that has someone from Germany and someone from South Africa and someone from California and someone from Arizona, all different kinds of people connecting in many cases through technology. When you think about coming from that kind of environment, you just think of diversity very differently, because in every one of these geographies and time zones, they think of diversity very differently. So I think when I came to UPMC, my first thought is, what do we do every day and why does it matter? Because I think that what I would say is that we've probably got greater traction in the area of cultural competency because it's something that everybody has to have. I think when people think of diversity, unfortunately, I think, and still even today in 2014, they think of diversity as, what are you going to do for black people? And, you know, although I can chuckle about it today, two of my interview questions, which was quite surprising to me, having spent most of my career in global organizations like Motorola and Sun and Xerox, the two questions, one was, is the community going to see you as black enough? And I have to tell you, when I heard that, it was at the time when Obama was running, and I was thinking, is this like political, or is this person like really serious? And
this came from people hiring you at UPMC?
Yes.
Okay.
So I had 27 interviews for the job that I'm in, and one of the interview questions from one of the 27 people was this question. And at the time, I thought it was pretty antiquated, like to suggest that, is the community going to see you as black enough to do this job? Like, what does that mean? But what I realized in hindsight was, is the community ready for expansion of the word diversity to include these elements that you're talking about, the LGBT community and disabilities and the Latino community and women, and in some ways, how are you going to engage the straight white guy? Because in many cases, if we truly want diversity to work, it can't just be about one demographic group. Now, let me be clear that we still have a journey to go. You would think that after all these years, that we would have made significant enough progress that we wouldn't be still having this conversation. So I would say that there's still an issue with race, but there also, over time, has developed other issues of unconscious bias or filters that when people are providing care or hiring people, that sometimes they unconsciously and sometimes even consciously make decisions that create the need for someone like me to be in this role.
Well, I have to tell you that just the conversation around diversity sometimes makes people feel a certain way. And then to attack it from the standpoint of a medical institution being sensitive enough to care for a patient, just as when we drive back to the examples that you made, it has to be tough work. I mean, you have a team of people around you who take these initiatives and then filter it all the way, I assume, to even the janitors or the people, the nurses, people, because this hospital has got to work from this, this standpoint of including everyone. How do you send this message back into the UPMC workforce, the doctors, everyone involved?
Well, I would say that some of our challenge is, you know, when you think of environmental services, the people who make sure the hospital is ready for you to come, the people who transport you from room to room. I would say that there is also an element of hierarchy, which would suggest that, you know, the people who need dignity and respect may not always be the patients. So some of this cultural awareness and some of this concept of inclusion and respect has as much to do with how we treat the people who make sure that the room is ready for a doctor or clinician to perform their work. So when we developed sort of our strategy, which at its foundation has cultural competency and dignity and respect, we literally, and every year we do this, we just walk around the hospital. We walk around the hospital, we do what we call road shows, where we get up and we do presentations, we do management rounding, we do team meetings. I mean, my team literally has probably, if we have 22 hospitals, we've at least done 200 road shows, where literally we just go, sometimes as a prepared event where we say we're coming and then people come and fill up an auditorium. Sometimes it's a call that someone makes to us and says, can you come? And the conversation, ironically, and whether it's about patient care or what we do to ensure that our employees have a good working experience, the concept of dignity and respect actually is probably our primary focus, not to suggest that we're not also focused on diversity and inclusion. But my hypothesis is that if we don't believe that the person who we're interacting with, whether it's a patient or an employee, deserves dignity and respect, then the reality is you might go to a class and check the box and say, I'm done, and it won't change your behavior. And so the concept of dignity and respect for me, and today at UPMC it's become a value, it's a part of our competency evaluation on performance management, it's a part of our new hire orientation, it's a part of our clinical rounding, our nursing rounding. We're really trying to transform the culture so that it isn't just my team doing the work, that it really is the organization that's embracing the concept of dignity and respect as a part of the way we do business. That value, the creation of that value, although I would hope that respect has always been sort of a concept that we've embraced as an organization, but it legitimately became a value in 2013. So I would think that's evidence that when we came here in 2008 and we started this work, we just had 2 words, and we said we should do this. And now it's a value, and now it's a competency, and now it's a part of the way we evaluate our employees. It's a part of our employee engagement survey. And so I would say we've come a long way in that area. If UPMC as an organization had to rate itself, or if I had to rate UPMC, I would suggest that we are on a journey, and although we're making progress like many organizations, we still have work to do in the area of dignity and respect and cultural competency, but it's definitely on our radar.
The Pink House, a 100-year-old attraction filled with the sweet, yummy smell of award-winning Wagner's chocolate. This unique boutique is unlike any candy shop you've ever experienced. The indulgent aroma delights you as you wander from room to room, and you'll discover Wagner's is more than just chocolate. Shop for your own candy-making supplies. Visit the gift shop, book your next party, and be a kid again in the fun ice cream parlor, where they serve hot and cold drinks and Hershey's ice cream. The signature chocolates are handmade with care and attention to detail. You'll be amazed at the favorite offerings that keep generations returning to this family-owned gem. Chocolate-covered pretzels and Twinkies, caramel apples, homemade biscotti, and so much more. This family-friendly experience is worth the stop in Finleyville to experience a 37-year-old tradition. Or order online at thepinkhouse.biz and give a call to 724-348-2238. Are you looking for a way to advertise your business, product, or service? Why not do it here on Hustle and Heart TV? We'd be happy to send you our media kit for show sponsorship and advertising. Reach out to us at info@dariethchisholm.com or give us a call at 412-692-1600 and we'll send you a media kit with all the information.
One place for all your insurance needs? Of course. See State Farm agent Steve Chris. Call or stop by today.
Bad things happen to good people. Accidents, serious injuries, or even death. When they do, families call Frank Walker Law, where we fight to get you the compensation you deserve. Hard-hitting representation when you need it the most. A real law firm getting real results.
What Dignity and Respect has allowed us to do is to enter into new conversations without creating that intimidating factor. The factor that you suggested that says make people uncomfortable. So when we ask people, raise your hand if you believe you deserve dignity and respect, everyone says yes. And then we ask people to raise your hand if you believe you treat everyone with dignity and respect. And of course, hands still go up. And then I always joke, I said, now someone in this room is looking around this room and said, I know she's not raising her hand or he's not raising their hand, because in spite of us raising our hands, we all know we can do a little better. And that creates a way for us to have this conversation about what does that mean and what does respect mean across cultures and across difference, that doesn't feel the same way as here's a video, here's what we have to do for compliance. Because, one of the things that I do know is that if I came to you and I said, that situation didn't make me feel like you were treating me in a respectful manner, most people their natural reaction would say, oh, I'm so sorry, tell me what I can do, how can we fix it? If I came to you and I said, I think you treated me that way because I'm a woman, the whole dynamic of the conversation started. If you're a woman, you might have a little bit of conversation. If you're a guy, you're calling HR is calling legal, and now all of us are going to have the conversation. In some cases, we actually haven't really dealt with the issue. And I don't know what the issue is, and it doesn't necessarily matter. If it's about respect and we're going to work together, let's figure out what that's going to be. But if I say it's because I'm a woman, even if it is because I'm a woman, it takes us down a whole different path. So what we found is that dignity and respect allows us to have a different kind of conversation and helps us to bridge, in some cases, the differences and allows us to work through them.
Yeah, you get to create the dialogue so that
exactly.
You don't have all of the energy that goes behind having to bring in, other people to continue the conversation. It, allows the two parties to talk. So let's switch gears and talk just about women and not necessarily just women, so I should say anyone in the workforce who is in corporate America looking to move up the ladder, looking to establish their name, their program, their reputation, and really affect change that way. What would you encourage them to do? What should someone saying to themselves, I work in a large hospital conglomerate, and I want to be here days later. I want to see what I can do to institute change. What should I be doing? What path should I be walking on?
Well, so I would say very differently from the perspective of healthcare versus corporate America. Because healthcare is a different kind of, I would say, engine than that of corporate America. Although there are some similarities. If you're in the corporate environment where marketing and sales are one of the enterprise or shared services offerings, it might be very similar to corporate. But if you're in a clinical role, I would say, that's a very different path. So let me respond to the part about corporate, which I would say I'm probably the most familiar with. One of the things that I think that happens in your 20s is you just have big dreams about what you want to be. And I think it's important for us to have mentors. Those 20s and 30s years are the years where we're experiencing our first. And depending on what background you have and whether you're the only one in your family who went into business, and some of your family might be in, the public sector, some of your family might be in the private sector. When you're the one who's on that journey for the first time, I would say the best advice that I would give is to make some friends along the way. And what I mean by that is sometimes the friends who can help you, who can mentor you, who can coach you, aren't the ones who you grew up with. Many of my friends today are attorneys, or some of them are teachers, and none of them really have my experience. And so some of the things that I struggle with or am challenged by in the day-to-day work environment aren't necessarily things that they can give me advice on. So I would say making sure that you build a network of people who are on that similar journey, because then you can ask the question, this is the first time I'm presenting in a large meeting, and what do you think I should do? How do I get through this? Because oftentimes we may feel a little bit of insecurity, or we may feel we're doing this for the first time and feel a little uncomfortable, but sometimes you can have a good set of girlfriends who you can role play with, who can give you some feedback, and you can do it in a safe environment. So you're not doing or experiencing your first by yourself in front of a group of people. So that would be my first set of advice. I would say the second thing is that be careful about what you ask for. One of the hardest choices I ever had to accept was a choice that a manager made. His name was Dan Phelan. And Dan told me, I could give you this job and you could do it, but I think you need to spend a little bit more time so that you can help other people when you're in that job. And I remember thinking, well, if I can do the job, why wouldn't you just give me the job? And when I look back on that decision, although I was quite disappointed with him in making that decision and telling me to my face this was the case, I would say it was probably one of the best learning experiences I had. Because when I look back over the course of my career and all the stops that I've made, I would say that I spent enough time there that I could coach others who were doing the job and working for me. And if I needed to, I could do the job myself. Because sometimes things happen. And when my boss says he needs something and the person can't deliver and you don't know how to do it yourself, then you're in a situation sometimes that makes it sticky. So spend enough time to understand what's expected and how you have to do it. I would say the hardest moves are the move from manager, from individual contributor to manager, manager to director, or whatever the levels are, because you're often competing with people who are already in that position. So if you're moving from a manager, for example, to a director position, and the position becomes available, you're asking them to promote you, and yet you're sometimes competing against people who are already at that same level. And so I think that, my father gave me some advice many, many years ago. I was probably even in high school thinking, Dad, I don't need to know that at this point. But he's always said, act as if. So if I'm really, really, really ready for a director job, I should understand how they're spending their time, where they're networking, so that they can see me when I'm interviewing for that job, that they don't see me as a manager asking for a promotion, but they see me as a peer of the other group that I'm trying to be a part of. And that also requires mentoring. That requires coaching, and that also requires preparation. And so sometimes you might have to interview for a director position to get the experience, maybe not in your own organization. And sometimes, you use your own organization to get the experiences you need to interview for a position outside of your organization. Because imagine that the best job that you've ever wanted comes up, but you're not ready for it. And you don't want to lose the best job because you're asking them to promote you, and you didn't prepare for that director interview. You didn't prepare for that director experience. And so when I'm mentoring people, the thing that I always ask them to think about is this. When you are looking for the next job, interview people who are already in the job. And by the way, some of them might turn out to be a mentor for you, but ask them a couple of questions. What skills and experience did you need to get there? And what was the biggest learning gap, right? The thing that you needed to, when you're in the role, that you feel like you needed to get up to speed on. Because those then become information that you can start to work on while you're in your current role without actually being in that director position. And then you create a list. These are the things that they say. And you mark off the ones that you have as your experiences. So now when you're interviewing against those directors, you have their words to be able to translate into your own words. So it doesn't sound like I want to do that job. You're now saying I'm ready to do that job.
Welcome to Smoke Cigar Shop and Lounge. Come smoke your ash off. Come for the knowledge and stay for the experience. With 15 years in the cigar business, we are here to help you find just the right cigar for you or a gift for someone else. We have cigars to fit any budget and palate, from super premium to hard-to-find boutique brands. A comfortable lounge to enjoy your cigars, free Wi-Fi, and BYOB with cork fee. Sit back and relax and get the full experience. There's always a lot going on at Smoke Cigar Shop. Sports, news, great conversation, or meetings with your coworkers. To stay on top of all of our events and specials, visit us at smokecigarshop.com or on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Smoke Cigar Shop. Download our app at the App Store or Google Play Store. We're open 10 to 9 during the week and until 10 Friday and Saturday, Sunday 12 to 5. Remember, Smoke Cigar Shop and Lounge. Smoke your ash off with fine butts and hot ashes.
So what steps have you taken lately to take your business to a whole nother level? Or are you stuck or stalled? I'd love to hear from you. So send me an email at info@dariethchisholm.com, or you can like me on Facebook at Darieth Chisholm or on Twitter at Darieth Chisholm and share your journey. Ask me a question, give me a topic or two, or a potential show guest. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Do you dread going to work every day? Stuck in a dead-end job? Hi, I'm Daryl Warden of the Miles Group. I love my career and you can too. We're looking for people who like to go to work, have a great time, take control of their schedules, and take charge of their lives.
I worked in food service and I never knew that I could be happy, help people, and make great money.
We will train you, help you get your license. If you want to work amongst friends and make great money, call Team Warden at the Miles Group.
Hi, I'm Becky Auer, and I help small business owners get their profits through the roof. And you're watching Hustle and Heart TV.
Like every busy person these days, we find ourselves going in 15 different directions. And oftentimes it really is important to not only have a professional team around you who can continue to roll out the initiative and see the vision and work hard, but sometimes you need to create some personal things into place. And finding balance, especially for type A people, can be tough. How do you find it? Or have you found it?
I think I find it in spurts. I would say, you know, when probably in my early career, I remember sitting in the living room with one of my dear friends. Her name is Sherry Slayton. We were sitting around talking about, you know, that we were so happy about these roles that we had. We were traveling around the world, and but the very things that were important to us, we actually had little and less time for. And one of the reason we're talking about that, because I hadn't seen her in so long. And so we created this concept called Power and Joy. And it for me, when I think of power and joy, I say the very thing that gives us power sometimes steals our joy. And so the concept was to try to find ways that, in spite of our journeys and our careers, because oftentimes when we think of power, we think of our careers. We think of the things that give us access to the things that we want to do, access to travel or access to family, and be able to put our kids in school, or to be able to go on vacations or do the kinds of things that we have sort of planned for all of our lives. But sometimes we actually don't have time for those things, because the very thing that we have to do to make those things possible sometimes take us away from it. So when I think of joy, I think of my husband. I would say I've known my husband for 30 years, and he is by far my very best friend, the one person who I can just be my full self in good times and bad times and happy days. And I think that finding a life partner, and whatever that means for people, Oprah has her Gail, I have my Alex, and some people have best friends that they've had for their entire childhood. I think that nurturing that relationship has to be first and foremost, because whatever happens on the power side, this is the place you're going to go when things don't go well. And so it's important to nurture that. I would also say I have a group that I call my little Power and Joy Circle. And they're the ones that on the days where it doesn't matter what point in my career, that I wonder, like, what have I done? Did I make the right choice in a role? Did I make the right choice to move? Did I make the right choice in a decision that I may have made that was personal? They're the ones who remind you, you've done this before. They're the ones who remind you of the accomplishments that you had when sometimes you get down on yourself and you can't even remember anything that feels good. So I think it's also good to have a good lifetime partner and great friends. But then I also think sometimes you need, as Anthony Robbins would say, to build pattern interrupts into your life. And the way he would describe that are the things that when you get to that point, it looks familiar, but to plant something there that reminds you that you need to do something different or to prevent you from crossing over. And so I would say I think I've done a good job in the partner relationship. I think I've done a good job in the area of nurturing my friendships. But I would say the pattern interrupts, that which I need to do for myself, is what I've really been focused on, particularly in the last several months. Because sometimes life happens, and you know, I've lost 2 friends to cancer unexpectedly. I feel fortunate to have my family, but my family's in California. And so sometimes because life just gets busy, I look up and several weeks or months or, you know, have passed and I haven't done anything for myself. So now I have what they call themselves Team Candy. Now, I didn't make that name up, they did.
Now, and this is also a part of your pattern interrupts. So
yes,
as part of
pattern,
it, you
yes.
put or they put a Team Candy together.
Yes, yes. So I entered, so this pattern interrupt, this thing I do for myself is I have a trainer, and you know, it doesn't have to be a trainer. It can just be a girlfriend that's going to meet you on Monday and Wednesday to spin class or walk with you on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I have an executive coach, and it doesn't have to be a coach, like somebody who you actually have to pay. It could just be someone a mentor, someone who you're saying, okay, this is what I have coming up, what suggestions or advice, or I have something going on that I want to run by you. It's just that person that you can sort of bounce your career questions and decisions off of. And I also have committed to finishing 2 books that I've started like 8 years ago. And so I have a writing coach. And so in order to make sure that the things happen, they are not only my coaches, but they are what I would call my pattern interrupt, because I can't reschedule my appointments with them. And so the things that I've planned out for the next 90 days, they're there. And in addition to that, I have friends who are associated with that. So although I may not see the coaches or the people who I need to see all the time, I have things that I'm supposed to do along the way. And so each one of my friends is a part of that pattern interrupt.
They hold you accountable.
Yes.
And oftentimes when you're very busy and you tend to push all of those things that you know you need to be held accountable for away, you have to bring in, you know, a team around you, and as you point out, Team Candy, to keep you. And what's nice about what you've described is it's not just the physical side about, you know, obviously the coach is in place to do that, but now you have someone to help hold you accountable for what is obviously a passion of yours, writing and wanting to get the book done, but that needs to have space and someone to help you breathe air into it. And then clearly, as an executive coach, maybe to just keep everything in balance and keep things into perspective, which I love. What prompted you to realize that? Because at some point we can all say that, but you know, and we can all dream that we need to do it, but sometimes when it doesn't happen until you put pen to paper or take immediate action. At what point did you know it's time to institute pattern interrupts?
Well, I've always known. Probably actually it was August 24th. I had the worst headache I've ever had in my life, and it was scary because I didn't know what that was, and I thought, you know, this is just going to go away. And I ended up going to, you know, like what we have a health clinic in the facility, and then I ended up going from there to the emergency room. And the good news is they didn't find anything. But what it said to me was, you know, and I think of, you know, and I don't know, I think this was kind of a joke because it's actually not really, it's like a story in the Bible of, you know, the guy who there was a river, there was a flood, and, you know, some guy comes down and says, hey, the flood is coming, you better get on, you know, let's go. And then he says, no, I'm not going to go, and God's going to take care of me. And then the water comes up a little bit, and now they're coming to get him on a boat, and he say, come on, let's go. And he's like, no, I'm not going to go because God's going to save me. And of course the water rises up, a helicopter comes to get him, and then he says, you know, no, God's going to save me. And so then the helicopter, right, guy goes away, the water comes up, he dies. And then he tells God, like, why didn't you come and save me? He said, well, I sent somebody to get you a boat and a helicopter, and then you didn't respond. And so I've had a couple of situations that I think are either stress related or just being overwhelmed with just doing too many things. And I felt like this was like the boat. I don't want to wait until the helicopter. And so I decided that it's time, right? I mean, I keep saying I'm going to do it. And I feel like the door, somebody came and knocked on the door and said, the river's coming, right? And I said, okay, yeah, this time I'm going to do something. And then you get started and then you stop. But I feel like this is my boat, like this is the boat. And so I'm trying to avoid the helicopter from coming.
It's listening. I mean, you were conscious enough to finally, as you say, and I love that story. I've heard it oftentimes, but you weren't going to wait around for the helicopter, and you figured, you know what, there's no excuse that I can't take care of myself and find balance in my life. And you know, as part of this show, we focus on leadership, and we've talked about that. We focus on leveraging, putting tools into place, having teams around you, and then lifestyle, and that's a big part of it. I want to talk a little bit about loving your journey, because we focus on that as well. And throughout everything that we do, it's really important to know and love where we are and where we see ourselves going.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that if your health isn't good and your mind isn't in a place where you can even appreciate the journey, that it's really hard, I think, for you to create balance. I think it's really hard for you to decide that which gives you joy. And I think sometimes, and I'm not suggesting that men don't do this, but I think sometimes our journey as women is the journey of the people who we care for. And it often isn't our own journey. It's, you know, our children, should we have them, it's our spouse, it's our partner, it's the place that we work. Sometimes that gets more of our journey than anything else that we do. And depending on what age we are, sometimes it becomes our parents become a part of that journey. And so I feel like there can be two lanes on the road, right? And so if a part of the journey has to be us feeling like, and sometimes guilty if we don't do those things, and put another lane on there that includes us. And what I would say is for me, the thing that I love most is probably creating access for people to, particularly young women. I mentor a number of young women in their careers because I feel like I was so grateful, and so many people helped me that I feel obligated to ensure that when I see someone who looks like they might be a little bit confused about what's going on, or even if they just ask. I probably have more mentees than my calendar will actually allow. I have at least 50 mentees, and my assistant would say, this can be your full-time job, but it's not. I would also say the thing that gives me joy is hanging out with my friends. So whether it's a cup of tea, I love the spa, and I also think that it's important for me to encourage other women to take time to make time for themselves. One of the principles of Power and Joy is to celebrate life. And when I think about all the things that we do, it's sometimes that thing about celebration of life that is the thing that if we can move something around, that's the flexible item. And so I would say what I've learned to do is to not be flexible with that thing that's for me, because I need it just as much as my boss needs, you know, something by a deadline, or my husband needs something, right, by a deadline, or I don't have children, but if I had children, it would be the same. And so I feel like I deserve to be on my own calendar. I deserve to have joy in my life. And I think as women, not to suggest that men don't, I think men do as well, but the sooner that we feel like or can recognize in our hearts and our heads and in our soul that we deserve it and put ourselves there, that's when joy happens. And I think we live much longer and much more fruitful lives when we decide that we are important and we are a big deal in our own lives. And if we can take better care of ourselves and we can be more joyful, all those other people who benefit from us existing in the world will be better off as well.
Great, fantastic. So Candy, we love to squeeze just a little bit out of you. And we've talked about a lot of different things, but we like to close our show with 2 tips, and we call them a hustle tip and a heart tip. So for people watching, for people who are moved by what it is that you do and perhaps are looking for ways to grow and expand in their roles, what would you give them as a hustle tip in terms of working hard, and the heart tip around loving something or being passionate?
I would say the hustle tip is love what you do. I think that the reason that I have the capacity, up here at least, sometimes my body doesn't want to keep up with that, is because I love what I do. I think that creating an environment, a world where people have access, and whether that's access to good patient care or a great experience in a retail store or a product and services that recognizes their difference. Whether it's an ad that ensures that there are people of color, that says, come work here, come buy our products and services. I think that's sort of like just my life mission. And I think when you love what you do, it doesn't actually feel like work, which can sometimes be the problem, because then you can work forever. And it's also good to be paid to do what you love. So I would say love what you do. And for me, I would say the heart tip is find somebody who loves you, who can remind you of who you are. And although I would say that you don't necessarily need that from a day-to-day reinforcement, sometimes just having a person who's right next to you on those days where it's been a long day, who will make you a cup of tea, who will make sure you have something to eat, who will encourage you on the days that are long. I would say that most of my accomplishments have been reinforced by having a husband who says, you can do this. When a new project comes up or a new challenge comes up, and when we talk about it, and he says, you can do this. It's having that partner that reminds me that on those days when I feel like I'm gonna take on, like I feel like Sisyphus, who was pushing a rock up a hill and the gods kept pushing him back down. Having a partner, someone who can remind you of who you are, allows you to, when that rock comes tumbling down, that you can lock hands, and now it's 2 of you pushing that rock back up the hill. And whether it's a life circumstance, a work circumstance, or just life happens, right? When you have to figure out how to get through things, having a good friend, a partner, a husband, a spouse to help you get through those things so that you can recover and get back on the journey of getting your hustle on.
Candy, I really enjoyed my tea time with you. Thanks so much for giving me all that great information. And for those of you all who are watching, you can find out more about Candy by going out to our website at Hustle and Heart TV and then search her name, and her show notes page will give you links back out to the things that she finds very important, including resources and ways that you can touch base with her.
The award-winning Savoy restaurant has become synonymous with fine dining, upscale ambiance, and a great destination for local and national celebrities to enjoy the night in style. The Savoy has won multiple Savor Pittsburgh Awards for its delicious menu. Our wine list was awarded Wine Spectator's 2012 Award of Excellence, and the Savoy has also won the American Institute of Architects' People's Choice Award for its beautiful architecture and design. For dinner reservations and more info, log on to SavoyPGH.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. Shelley Hipsky. I'm the president of Inspiring Lives LLC and a professor at Robert Morris University. And I'll see you on the next episode of Hustle and Heart TV.